The first crack wasn't the gossip or the lies or even the second toothbrush. It was the way my wife smiled like a stranger when I walked through my own door. Every mile on the highway whispered louder, and every clue at home confirmed the storm I didn't want to face. Then came the receipt, the hoodie, and the man I trusted most. You spend enough time behind the wheel of a big rig and the road starts talking to you in ways that no human ever could. The low hum of the diesel engine becomes a kind of meditation. Long, open stretches of asphalt have a way of helping a man work things out in his head. That's why I love the job. The solitude, the clarity, the honesty of it. You either made your delivery on time or you didn't. No excuses, no lies. I've been hauling freight for 18 years. Name's Michael. My route stretches from Texas to Wyoming and sometimes as far out as Oregon. I've seen mountain passes turn white in October and deserts boil in July. But nothing, not weather, not traffic, not even a blown turbo, hit me as hard as the quiet words I heard over a cup of coffee at a truck stop just outside of Amarillo. "Mike," Frank said, not looking me in the eye. "You sure everything's good back home?" It was 6:30 in the morning. My hands were wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug, steam curling up under my nose. We were parked for our 10-hour reset, lounging at a Formica table worn smooth from 1,000 drivers just like us. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't expect the question. "Yeah," I said, taking a sip. "Why?" Frank shifted in his seat. He was older than me by a decade, his beard grayer than mine, his eyes more tired. He scratched the back of his neck and finally looked at me. "Just heard some talk, that's all." "What kind of talk?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Nothing concrete. Just, you know how people run their mouths. One of the new guys said he stopped by your place last month. Dropped off some paperwork. Said he saw a guy there. One that wasn't you." I narrowed my eyes. "What guy?" He shook his head. "Didn't get a name. Said he looked pretty comfortable. Knew where the coffee filters were, that kind of thing." I didn't say anything for a while. Just stared at the swirl of black liquid in my mug. Frank cleared his throat. "Could be nothing. People see things, assume things. Maybe it was family. Cousin, uncle, whatever." "Yeah," I said. "Maybe." But something in my gut had shifted. Something I didn't like. Frank wasn't the type to stir the pot. He'd seen his share of truck stop drama, the kind of petty gossip that flared up and vanished like a summer thunderstorm. He wouldn't have brought it up unless he thought I needed to hear it. Still, I didn't believe it. Not really. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for 11 years. She knew the life when she married me. Knew I'd be gone for weeks at a time, sometimes longer. But she never complained. She ran the house like a captain steering a ship, steady, calm, in control. If there were cracks in the hull, she never let them show. That night, I called her. Routine check-in. We always talked when I pulled into a rest stop. It was our rhythm. "Hey, babe," I said when she answered. "How's everything?" "Good," she said. Her voice was warm, familiar. "Kids are good. Alex has a dentist appointment tomorrow. I'm dreading it." I chuckled. "Tell him to be brave. Daddy handles worse every day," with a smile. She laughed, but something about it felt forced. Maybe it was the delay in her response. Or maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks after what Frank had said. I let it slide. We talked for another 5 minutes, then hung up. I lay back on the bunk in my sleeper cab, staring at the ceiling, letting the hum of passing trucks lull me into a restless sleep. In the morning, I told myself it was nothing. A misunderstanding. Gossip. But in the days that followed, small things started to stick out like potholes on a fresh paved road. Sarah missed a call. Twice. She said she was grocery shopping, but I heard the distinct clink of glasses in the background. Sounded like a bar. She stopped saying, "I love you" at the end of every call. Little things. Subtle. But when you live a life where you count every mile, you learn to pay attention to the little things. Still, I kept driving. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, I had no proof. No photos. No texts. No late-night confessions. Just rumors. But the road kept whispering. And I started listening. It started with the toothbrush. I came home after a long run through the Rockies. 3 days of mountain switchbacks and icy air brakes. Sarah didn't know I'd be home early. I'd taken a shortcut and pushed hard to make it back by Friday afternoon. There was a part of me, maybe the part that still believed everything was fine, that wanted to surprise her. Walk through the door, kiss her on the cheek, take her in my arms, and feel normal again. I didn't find her in the kitchen or the living room. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She was upstairs, folding laundry in the bedroom. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, Michael," she said, her hand clutching her chest. "You scared me." "Didn't mean to," I said, walking over. I leaned in to kiss her. She hesitated for just half a second, barely enough for someone who wasn't paying attention to notice. But I noticed. Her cheek, not her lips. That was new. I glanced at the bed. Fresh laundry, kids' clothes, her stuff, but none of mine. Normally, when I was about to come home, she'd wash my work clothes, even the ones I hadn't worn. A routine, a ritual. She hadn't done that this time. I didn't say anything. We had dinner together, the kids chattering about school. She smiled, nodded, played the part. If something was wrong, she masked it well. But even a well-oiled engine rattles when a bolt is loose, and I could feel the shake. Later that night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something odd. There were 2 toothbrushes on the counter. Both were blue. Mine had a red band on the handle. Always did, so I could tell it apart. Hers was usually green or purple, but now 2 blues. No green, no purple. I held one up and looked at it. Different bristles. Slightly newer. Fresher. "Hey, babe," I called out casually. "Did you get a new toothbrush?" From the hallway. "Nope, same one I've always had." I didn't say anything. Just stared at the 2 identical blue brushes. One was mine. The other wasn't hers. I put them back and went to bed. The next morning, I told her I was taking a quick load out to Oklahoma. That was a lie. I needed time to think. I drove to the diner on 42nd, our old breakfast spot, and sat there for an hour nursing a cup of black coffee. That's when I saw Greg. Greg was one of the younger guys, new to the company. A short-haul driver, mostly local routes. He'd been quiet since he joined, always respectful, but shy. I waved him over. He hesitated before walking up. "Hey, Mike," he said. "Didn't expect to see you here. Take a seat," I offered, gesturing to the booth. He slid in, eyes darting around like he didn't want to be seen. "You all right?" I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it, then leaned in. I wasn't going to say anything. I thought it was none of my business. My heart rate picked up. "Say what?" His voice dropped. "A few weeks ago, I dropped a load at your address. Your wife signed for it." "That's not unusual." "No, but the guy who came out to carry the stuff in. I thought it was your brother or cousin or something. He was barefoot, shirtless, looked comfortable." I stared at him. Greg looked down at his coffee. He touched her casually when passing by. "What?" Greg winced. "Look, man, I didn't want to get in the middle of anything. I told Frank. I figured if something was going on, you'd already know." I sat back, the booth creaking beneath me. My fingers drummed the table. No photos. No names. No proof. But now it was 2 drivers. 2 separate accounts. And that toothbrush. She could explain away a toothbrush. She could even lie about a visitor. But you can't fake instinct. You can't unhear a whisper once it's turned into a shout. I thanked Greg for telling me, paid for our coffees, and walked out into the parking lot. I didn't go home. I didn't drive to Oklahoma. I sat in my cab for 6 hours with the engine off, listening to the stillness, trying to figure out my next move. If she was hiding something, I didn't want to stumble upon the proof directly. I wanted to know why. Not with cameras. Not with hired help. I'd find the cracks in her lies the way I always found engine trouble. By listening. By watching. By staying calm. I came home Sunday evening, driving slower than usual. Not because of traffic. There wasn't any. The roads were open, the sky clear. But something in me didn't want to arrive. I didn't want to step through that front door and see the same house that no longer felt like mine. When I pulled into the driveway, the lights were on in the living room. The TV flickered behind the curtain. The silhouettes of my 2 kids were on the couch. Sarah's voice floated from the kitchen, cheerful, casual, normal, too normal. I sat in the truck a moment longer than I needed to. The engine ticking quietly as it cooled, the night pressing in. I used to look forward to coming home. Now, it felt like walking into a room you knew you'd locked, but found wide open. I stepped inside and put on a smile. "Dad," the kids shouted, running over. I knelt and hugged them, burying my face in their hair longer than I needed to. For a moment, it was just the 3 of us. Untouched. Uncorrupted. Sarah poked her head out of the kitchen. "Hey, you're home early again." She dried her hands on a towel and came over. We kissed. Lips this time, but short, hesitant. "I wanted to see you," I said. She gave me a quick smile, then went back to the kitchen. I made pot roast. You hungry? I nodded. I was, but not for food. We sat at the table, just the two of us after the kids went to their rooms. She talked about the PTA meeting, a busted light in the garage, her car needing new tires. Her words were ordinary, her tone light, but I kept waiting for the crack to show. I asked about the guy Greg had seen, casually, like I was joking. Anyone else been stopping by lately? She didn't flinch. Just your brother once, to drop off some tools you asked for. I didn't ask my brother for anything, but I nodded. Later that night, while she was brushing her teeth, I stood in the bedroom and stared at the mirror. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even confused. I was studying. Her perfume bottle had moved. Her laptop, usually closed, was now open. A hoodie, definitely not mine, was hanging on the back of the chair. I walked over, picked it up. No tags. Faint smell of cologne I didn't wear. I held it in my hands for a long time. Then I folded it and placed it back exactly where I found it. I needed her to think I still believed. The next morning, I left before sunrise. She was asleep. I kissed her on the forehead, whispered, "I love you," and she mumbled it back. But it was automatic, like a muscle memory, not the way it used to be. At the truck stop that night, I met with Daryl. He was an old friend, ran dispatch now, but used to be out on the road with me. He was blunt, always had been. "You need to watch your back," he said. "You know that, right?" "What do you mean?" He lit a cigarette and looked at me through the smoke. "You keep coming home early. You keep acting like you're not paying attention to her. That's good. But you do realize, if she's hiding something, she won't stop unless she thinks you've noticed." I didn't respond. He tapped the ash off. "It's not just about catching her. It's about how you carry yourself when you know." That stuck with me. Because the truth was, I didn't want revenge. I didn't want some dramatic blow-up. No yelling, no name-calling. I just wanted the truth. And when I got it, I wanted to walk away with my head held high, not crawling out of the wreckage like some broken man. So I started a journal. Nothing fancy, just notes. May 3rd, she said she was at the gym. Gym closed early for maintenance. Checked online. May 7th, hoodie still there. She didn't mention it. Asked about it. Said it was her brother's. Her brother lives in Michigan. May 9th, called at 9 p.m. Said she was in bed. Heard music in the background. Definitely not from our house. Each entry was a puzzle piece. And I wasn't looking for a picture yet. I was just gathering the pieces. But every mile I drove, every rest stop I hit, every night I spent staring at my dashboard instead of sleeping, I started to feel like I wasn't married anymore. Not really. Because marriage is built on trust. And I was down to fumes. When a trucker starts to second-guess his own gut, he's already losing. I knew that. But I also knew I couldn't confront Sarah without being sure. No shouting. No finger-pointing. I wanted calm. I wanted control. I wanted her to look me in the eye and know I knew. And for her to know that I wasn't going to fall apart because of it. The next weekend, I told her I'd be gone for a week. I even left a day early. But I didn't hit the highway. I checked into a motel just 15 minutes out of town. Small place. Nothing fancy. A few trucks parked outside. I kept my rig parked on the edge of the lot where it wouldn't be recognized. Then I waited. That night, I called her. Just stopped in New Mexico. I lied. Engine's running hot. Might get it checked out tomorrow. She didn't skip a beat. Okay, just be safe. Her voice was soft. Relaxed. Too relaxed. I ended the call, then sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the glow of the digital clock. At 9:42 p.m. I texted, "How's your night going?" No reply. At 10:17, another text. Still up? Still nothing. By 11:30, I wasn't angry. I was sure. Next morning, I drove home. I didn't go in. Just parked 2 blocks down and walked through a back alley until I could see the garage from a distance. The driveway was empty. My truck was gone. Good. The front door? Open just a crack. Like someone forgot to close it all the way. I waited. At 10:06 a.m., a silver sedan pulled into the driveway. Not a neighbor's car. Not a delivery vehicle. No markings. No plates I recognized. A man got out. T-shirt, jeans, baseball cap. Comfortable. Like he'd been there before. He walked in through the front door. No knock. No hesitation. And the door shut behind him. I didn't move. Didn't take photos. Didn't call anyone. I just watched. After an hour, I walked back to my truck and drove to the next county over for fuel. I needed the engine hum to level me out. That evening, when I finally walked through the door, Sarah was in the kitchen, humming softly, stirring a pot of something that smelled like home. She turned and smiled like nothing was wrong. "You're back early," she said. I nodded. "Engine didn't overheat. Guess it was a false alarm." She kissed me on the cheek. "Glad you're safe." I watched her closely. Nothing in her eyes gave anything away. No guilt. No shift in tone. Just casual, practiced normalcy. "How was your weekend?" I asked. "Quiet," she said. "I did some cleaning. Took the kids to the park. Watched that documentary you hate." She didn't mention the silver sedan. Didn't mention the man who walked in without knocking. Didn't mention why she hadn't answered my texts. I nodded, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat down at the table. She kept talking. Talking like she was making conversation, but really, she was laying down a story. A timeline. One that I could cross-check, challenge, or accept. But I didn't challenge it. Not yet. Instead, I reached for my phone. "Can I see your photos?" I asked. "You said you took the kids to the park." She blinked. Just a second too long. Then, smiling, she handed me her phone. I scrolled. Dozens of photos from months ago. Halloween. A beach trip last summer. But nothing recent. I raised an eyebrow. "No park photos." She laughed. "I guess I forgot. Wasn't really in the mood to take any." I nodded, handed her the phone, and sipped my beer. That was lie number one. By bedtime, she'd told two more, small ones, about groceries, about calling her mom. Things she didn't know I'd already checked on. It wasn't the lies themselves that bothered me most. It was how easily she told them. Like she'd been practicing. There's a specific kind of silence that creeps into a marriage when things are unspoken. Not awkward silence. Not angry silence. Just that cold, wide space where trust used to live. That's what our house felt like now. Even the walls seemed quieter. She wasn't trying to cover her tracks anymore. She was trying to pretend they didn't exist. And that meant something had shifted. She thought I was still blind. And that told me everything I needed to know about where her heart really was. I stopped asking questions. I stopped pressing. If she wanted to play this out like we were still fine, I'd let her. Let her pour me coffee in the morning. Let her kiss my cheek like she meant it. Let her fold my shirts while another man's scent still lingered in the room. But I watched her. Every move. Every pause in her speech. Every time she left the room to take a phone call in the hallway instead of in front of me. I started noticing changes in routine. The laundry had been shifted, my clothes separated in a new bin. Subtle, but different. My favorite beer disappeared from the fridge twice. She said the kids must have moved it. The kids don't drink beer. My pillow, which I always used, had a faint chemical scent to it one night. Like cologne. Not mine. She started going for walks more. Alone. Said she needed time to clear her head. Once, I offered to go with her. She smiled, tight-lipped, and said, "Maybe next time." There was never a next time. The kids didn't notice, or at least they didn't show it. Maybe Sarah made sure the show went on for them. Or maybe they were too young to connect the dots. Either way, I played along. I wasn't going to drag them into this mess. Not unless I had to. One night, I couldn't sleep. The clock blinked 2:41 a.m., glowing red in the dark like an accusation. I got up, walked down the hallway, and past the bathroom. The door was slightly ajar. Her phone was sitting on the counter, screen lit. Unlocked. I shouldn't have done it. I know that. But I picked it up. No texts. No call logs. Everything wiped. Except for one calendar event. Just a small dot on Thursday. Lunch, J. That was it. No last name. No address. Just J. And yet, something about that single letter made my stomach drop. She never used initials for me in her calendar. Always spelled out Michael or Mike. But this was a different kind of shorthand. A private kind. Familiar. I put the phone back exactly as I found it, door still ajar, and walked back to bed. I lay there for hours, watching the ceiling fan spin shadows across the walls. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to accuse her. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to become the man she could point at and say, "See? This is why I left." Instead, I was going to become the version of myself she had clearly forgotten. Calm. Composed. Dead honest. That day, I cleaned the garage. Reorganized my tools. Swept the floors. Made it look like nothing was out of place. But I wasn't cleaning. I was making space. Not for her. For the truth. Because whatever Jay was, he wasn't a mistake. He wasn't a one-night lapse of judgment. He was consistent. Familiar. And very, very close. The next Thursday, I stayed home. Told dispatch I'd caught a stomach bug. They didn't ask questions. I'd earned my time, and they knew better than to press a man who's been on the road for 18 days straight. Sarah left around 11:20 a.m., said she had errands to run. No mention of lunch. No mention of Jay. I waited until the car disappeared down the street, then followed a few minutes later, not tailing her, not spying. Just driving the city in patterns, paying attention. I wasn't looking for her. I was looking for truth, in routine, in coincidence, in whatever cracks were left between her stories. I found her car parked outside a quiet diner on the edge of town. The kind of place locals forget about and tourists never find. I didn't go inside. I parked down the block and waited. At 1:06 p.m., she walked out, and beside her was a man. Tall, dark hair, loose-fitting button-up, confident. He touched her arm as they laughed, then leaned in just a little too close as they said goodbye. He didn't kiss her, but he didn't need to. That kind of comfort, the way her shoulder tilted toward him, the way she paused before getting into her car, it told me everything. He walked back to his own car, a silver sedan, the same one I'd seen pull into our driveway. I didn't follow him. I didn't write down his plate. That would have been easy. Too easy. And cheap. No, I needed something else. Something that she wouldn't see coming. I let her come home. Let her cook dinner like nothing had happened. Let her ask me about my day while I nodded and gave short answers. She didn't ask why I was quiet. Maybe she didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. That night, I stayed up late in the garage. She came out once to ask if I was okay. Just working on the truck, I said. She didn't ask what needed fixing. She didn't offer to bring coffee. She just nodded and went back inside. I sat at my workbench and stared at a photo taped to the wall. Me and Sarah, younger, happier, somewhere in Colorado, smiling in front of the rig. Her hair was shorter then. My beard was darker. We looked like people who could survive anything. But that photo was from a different life. The woman in that picture wasn't the same one inside the house now. And maybe I wasn't the same man either. I started thinking about Jay, about how easy it had been for her to slide into this double life. No drama, no guilt, just quiet deception. Then something hit me. The silver sedan. I'd seen it before, not just recently, but months ago. Once parked a few spaces down from my rig when I came home late one night. I'd thought nothing of it then. Figured it belonged to a neighbor's guest. But it wasn't random. And I remembered something else too. 3 months ago, our youngest, Emily, had mentioned someone named Jack when I called from the road. Jack was here. Mommy said he fixed the TV. Jack. Jay. I hadn't thought anything of it. Probably just a friend, right? Or someone from the neighborhood. But now I knew better. Jack was no friend. Jack was an open secret hiding in plain sight. And I had missed it because I had trusted her. And trust makes you blind. I went inside. Sat in the living room. The house was quiet. Sarah was already asleep. The kids too. I just sat there in the dark with the weight of everything pressing down on my shoulders. Not anger. Not yet. Just this growing sense that I was a stranger in my own life. That somewhere along the highway and the hotel rooms, I'd lost control of my own story. But not anymore. Tomorrow, I would start asking questions. Not because I wanted her to confess, but because I wanted to watch her lie. Morning came with sunlight and silence. The kind of silence that doesn't mean peace, but warning. Sarah moved around the kitchen like it was just another Saturday. Bacon on the stove. Eggs in the pan. She wore that old flannel shirt I'd bought her one Christmas. The one she used to save for cozy nights on the couch. Now it looked like camouflage. Smells good, I said, sliding into a chair. She smiled. Thought you'd sleep in. I've been thinking a lot lately, I said. Hard to sleep when your head's noisy. She tilted her head, concerned, but not curious. Everything okay? I looked at her and smiled. Yeah, just tired. She set a plate in front of me and sat across the table. The kids were still upstairs, so it was just the two of us. I was going through the calendar last night, I said, thinking about planning something for us. Maybe a weekend trip. Her eyes flickered. That'd be nice. You've been busy, though. A lot of lunch dates. She froze for less than a second. Just with friends. Lisa. Jen. You know. Funny, I said. You didn't mention Jack. There it was. The pause. That microscopic tightening of her jaw. A blink that lingered. A breath caught halfway. Jack? She asked, like she had never heard the name before. Yeah, I said casually, taking a bite. Emily mentioned him a while back. Said he was here once. Fixed the TV. Another beat passed. Oh, she said finally. That was ages ago. Just a friend from work. He's good with electronics. I thought you said you hadn't seen him lately. I haven't, she said too quickly. I mean, not really. Maybe once or twice. Work stuff. I nodded slowly. So not lunch on Thursday? Her lips parted, then closed. Then forced a laugh. Oh, that Jack. I forgot. Yeah, we ran into each other. Just a quick bite. He happened to be nearby. Where? Huh. Where'd you have lunch? She blinked. Bistro West, I think. You sure? Yeah, why? No reason, I said, sipping my coffee. Just curious. I was there around noon. Didn't see your car. She went silent. Not defensive. Not angry. Just quiet. And in that moment, she realized she'd stepped into it. She looked down at her plate and pushed a piece of bacon around with her fork. You're spying on me now? No, I said calmly. But I am paying attention. Because you're giving me a lot of stories lately, and none of them match. She exhaled a long breath, then looked up, her eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. What do you want, Michael? Huh? You want me to confess something that isn't true just to make you feel better? No, I said. I want the truth, whether it makes me feel better or not. She stood abruptly, grabbing her plate. Then maybe you should stop looking for things that aren't there. I didn't answer. I let her walk out of the kitchen with that final word like it meant something. Later that day, I walked into our closet. Her clothes lined one side, mine the other. But in the back, folded neatly, was that hoodie, the same one that had no tag, no brand. I picked it up again. And this time, I checked the pocket. Inside was a receipt, dated last Tuesday, from a liquor store across town. 2 bottles of whiskey, a brand I don't drink, paid in cash. And on the back of the receipt, scribbled in handwriting that wasn't mine. Friday night, 8 o'clock, your place. Jay? That's when I stopped wondering. That's when I stopped hoping she was innocent. The truth wasn't just knocking on my door anymore. It had walked right in and made itself at home. I sat in the garage for most of the night, that receipt folded in my hand like a confession I didn't ask for. Friday night, 8 o'clock, your place. Jay. That last part stuck in my head. Your place. Not ours. Not hers. That was a meeting between 2 people who had something private, intimate, rehearsed. I didn't confront her that night, didn't throw the receipt on the table or wave it in her face. Instead, I waited. Saturday passed like a fog. She was around the house, but kept her distance. We were like polite strangers, bound by shared groceries and a mortgage. The kids noticed. They didn't say anything, but they could feel the tension. Kids always do. Sunday afternoon, I told her I had to pick up a part for the truck and would be gone a few hours. I didn't drive far, just down the block, parked under the shade of an oak tree, and waited. At 7:47 p.m., her car pulled out of the driveway. I followed. Not close, just enough to keep her taillights in view. She took back roads, avoided the main highway, turned into a neighborhood on the west side of town. Clean lawns, well-kept fences, places where secrets go to feel safe. She pulled into a driveway, got out, walked up the steps of a single-story house like she'd done it a dozen times. No knock. The door opened before she even reached it. And then he stepped out. Tall. Familiar. Not because I'd seen him before, but because I'd heard him before. My CB radio buzzed in my head like an echo. Hey, Mike, you sure everything's okay back home? Frank. I'd known the voice. Had just never imagined it could belong to the man standing now in the doorway, greeting my wife like she belonged to him. Frank wasn't just another driver. He was the first one to plant the seed. The one who warned me. Who acted like he was looking out for me. All the while, he was the one pulling the strings. My hands clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. But I didn't get out. Didn't charge up to the house or make a scene. I just sat there and watched. At 8:03 p.m., the lights inside flicked off. Curtains drawn. Door shut. It wasn't a visit. It was homecoming. I drove away before I could change my mind and do something I'd regret. Parked at the truck yard and sat in the cab. Engine off. Just me and my thoughts. It wasn't rage that filled me. It was clarity. Frank wasn't some random stranger. He was someone I trusted, shared coffee with, laughed with at 4 a.m. in Wyoming while chains clinked on icy tires. A man who knew my schedule, knew when I was home, knew exactly when I wasn't. He hadn't just stolen my wife. He'd studied me to do it. That night, I went home around midnight. Sarah was already in bed, her breathing steady, peaceful. I stood in the doorway, looking at her in the faint glow of the hallway light. She looked like the same woman I married. Same curves, same soft features. But the soul beneath? That had packed up and left a long time ago. I didn't wake her. I didn't need to. The next morning, I made pancakes for the kids, packed their lunches, walked them to the bus. When I came back inside, she was sipping coffee. "Where were you last night?" she asked. I had a lot to think about. She didn't probe further, didn't apologize, didn't confess, just looked down at her mug, the lies simmering between us like cream in coffee. I sat across from her, calm. "You remember Frank?" I asked. She flinched, barely, but I caught it. "Yeah," she said slowly. "Why?" I held up the receipt. "I think you left this in the hoodie." Her eyes dropped to the paper. She didn't touch it, didn't speak. And that silence was all the confirmation I needed. I stood, took my keys, and said the last honest words I'd spoken in that house. "Tell him he can keep the hoodie. And you." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door when I left. Didn't tear out of the driveway or screech the tires. That kind of noise is for people who want to be heard. I didn't need Sarah or Frank to hear anything from me anymore. They'd already heard enough. I drove out past the truck yard, past the diner where we used to have breakfast before I hit the road. Kept going until the buildings thinned and the fields took over. Somewhere between county lines, I pulled over and killed the engine. The silence that followed was clean. No more lies buzzing around in my head. I sat there for a while, letting the wheel cool under my grip, the air thicken with the finality of it all. Then I made 2 calls. The first was to my manager at the freight company. I told him I wanted longer routes, coast-to-coast hauls, minimal downtime at home. "You sure, Mike?" he asked. "You've always been a Texas boy." "Not anymore," I said. "Texas is crowded with people I don't trust." The second call was to a real estate agent. I asked her to meet me at the house that afternoon. No details, just told her it was time to sell. "You and the wife moving?" she asked, cheerful. "No," I said. "Just me." When I pulled back into the driveway a few hours later, Sarah's car was gone. I unlocked the door, walked into the house, and started packing. Not the dramatic kind. No trash bags or broken plates. Just a few boxes. Clothes. Tools. My father's pocket knife. The only things that still felt like mine. I didn't touch her stuff. Not because I was being kind. Because it wasn't my job anymore. Let Frank move her dresses. Let him hang her coat on the back of his chair. They deserved each other. Around 5 p.m., I heard the door open. Sarah walked in, paused in the hallway when she saw the half-packed boxes. She stepped into the living room. "You're leaving?" I nodded. "You'll get the paperwork soon. I'm signing over the house." "I don't want it." "You can't just." "I can," I said. "And I am." She stared at me, something flickering in her eyes. Shock, maybe. Guilt. Or just the realization that she wouldn't get a fight out of me. That the man she betrayed wasn't going to stand there begging her to stay. "Why didn't you say something?" she whispered. I laughed softly. "Because I wanted to see how long you'd keep lying." Her mouth opened, closed again. No words. "You could have just told me," I added. "It would have hurt less than watching you pretend." "I didn't want to destroy this," she murmured. "It was already destroyed," I said. "You just kept lighting matches inside the wreckage." I left that night. Got a room near the yard, away from the house, from the history, from her. As I sat on the motel bed, staring at the thin curtains and the blinking neon from the gas station across the street, I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. I wasn't the man who came home anymore. I was the man who left. Not because I was weak, but because I had finally remembered who I was before she started making me forget. And in 2 days, I'd be crossing into Nevada, hauling steel across the desert. The road would be long, but it would be mine. The first thing you notice when you're finally free is how quiet the world becomes. Not the absence of noise. There's always noise on the road, but the absence of her. Her voice in your ear, her name in your phone, her presence in your plans. I crossed into Arizona 2 days later, watching the sun pour over red rocks and endless sky. Just me, the hum of my rig, and a long line of highway that didn't ask questions and didn't lie to me. It was beautiful, and I hadn't realized how badly I needed it. Sarah didn't call, didn't text. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. Maybe Frank had moved in already, settling into the house like a termite that finally found its way to the center of the wood. I didn't care. I had made my peace with it the moment I chose the road over revenge. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Of course it did. 11 years of marriage isn't something you toss in the trash like an empty coffee cup. But pain doesn't have to mean destruction. Some men burn everything down when they're betrayed. I didn't. I just walked away from the fire and let it die without me. One night, parked at a rest stop in New Mexico, I found myself staring up at the stars. Same ones I used to look at from our backyard while Sarah sipped wine and laughed at nothing. I remembered the sound of her laugh, how it used to feel honest. I don't know if that version of her was ever real, or if I just believed in something that never existed. I pulled out my phone, opened the gallery, scrolled past the old photos. Her smile, the kids, roadside selfies from state lines. I deleted them one by one, not out of anger, but out of mercy. She didn't belong in my story anymore. And I didn't need her ghost hitching a ride across the country with me. I kept only one picture. Me, sitting on the hood of the truck, somewhere outside Salt Lake, the Rockies behind me. I looked tired in the photo, a little thinner, but I also looked real. Not a husband, not a victim, just a man. A few weeks later, I stopped by my brother's place on a layover. He handed me a cold beer and didn't ask any questions. Just nodded at the truck and said, "Looks like she's still running good." "She is," I said, smiling. "She's got a lot of road left in her." "So do I." I set up a small storage unit for the stuff I kept from the house. Not much, just tools, some personal gear, and a few things from my dad. Everything else, sold, given away, or left behind. I didn't need reminders. I needed momentum. People ask me now if I ever think about her, if I regret walking away, if I ever feel tempted to call, to ask why she did it. But the truth is, I don't need to know. Knowing who Jay was enough. And more importantly, I already know who I am now. I'm not the man who sat in the passenger seat of his own life, watching it drive off without him. I'm the one holding the wheel. And out here, on these roads, where the lines blur into one another and the sky goes on forever, I'm not haunted. I'm healing, 1 mile at a time.